So, if you haven't been keeping up with my channel recently, I've been doing an Evil Within Akumu difficulty walkthrough. Go check that out. And I came across this video, or I looked it up or something. Can you beat the Evil Within without guns? Seems like a pretty decently challenging challenge, right? But as I was watching this, I saw that he cut out most of the game. Not, oh, I mean, a good chunk of the game. About 30% of the game that's essential to the storyline and the gameplay, and it is just unbelievable. So, did he fake this? Yes. I'm gonna just come out and say that he faked parts of this challenge. I do believe that he completed most of this game without guns, but he had to have cheated at some parts of the challenge, and he just didn't want to tell us. He just cut it out of the video. So we're going to be looking at it today. We're not going to be watching the whole thing. We're going to skip through it, and I'm just going to tell you the parts that he cut out. So let's go right into it.
Okay, this challenge all really began when I met my first enemy, and I did like any sane person when faced with a zombie that was once a beloved friend. I ran away as quick as possible.
Okay, he did skip over chapter 1, but that is... I'm not going to include that in what he skipped, because chapter 1, you don't really get a gun. You don't even get a gun. You just get a knife. And last time I checked, a knife isn't a gun. So that, okay, I mean, if I did this challenge, I would have probably skipped that too. So I can understand why he skipped chapter 1.
I need to stop questioning this game. So after messing around with the ghosts, I met up with the doctor's brother. And surprisingly, he wasn't too hard to kill. Oh yeah, he was also evil. Yeah, I should have said that part first. Well, anyways, I then walked and tripped out with our doctor friend, but unfortunately, we got separated through some video game.
So, if you have played The Evil Within before and you know the game as well as I do, which is very well, then you know that he skipped over the invisible enemies. So right after you encounter the doctor's brother, you go into like a basement or whatever of a house, and you find Leslie, and you encounter an invisible enemy. He cut that out. Now, is it a big deal? Not really, but I would have still included it to tell like your fans of what happened, because not a lot of people know about this game, so they want to know the storyline. So personally, I would have included it, but I don't know why he didn't include it, because that's actually a pretty big part in the game, because you find Leslie, which is like a big character in the game, so I don't know why he didn't include it, but I don't know. I don't know why.
Do all of that repetitive running again for about an hour, and I was finally able to finish off this fight. So after that waste of time, I met up with good old Joseph again.
Now, after you beat Laura in chapter 5 for the first time, you don't immediately... The chapter doesn't just immediately end. If you've played the game before, you know that after you beat Laura, you have to go through this room right here, the brain room, where you have to disconnect cords from enemies' heads or necks. And you can't kill them. You can't just like shoot their head off or anything, because you gotta pull the cord out of their neck. And it's near impossible to knock them down on the ground with a melee. So he had to use a gun, and he skipped this part too. He skipped it. Yes, I'm pulling up another video, but he skipped this entire part like it didn't even exist. He acted like after you beat Laura, that's the end of the chapter. No, because you gotta go through this part. So I'm just gonna say that he cheated, and he had to use ammo for these guys, because I've tried before, and it's near impossible. I don't think I've ever done it with just melee in this room. I don't think I've ever done it. And this is a big part to the story too, because it kind of gives some backstory of the story. So I don't know why he wouldn't include it. Maybe he cheated. I'm just gonna say that. So back to the regular video. I'm just pointing this out.
So after leaving the dog by himself, we entered into this church and tripped out again. And even though I'd been split up from Joseph again, this dungeon was only really hard because I ran into 2 hard to reach switches. I ended up using a bottle that kept on despawning and a grenade, but other than that, it was all pretty easy. So I then met up with this.
Now, he skipped over like 90% of Chapter 7. He didn't even acknowledge the 2-headed enemies that you encounter. He didn't even acknowledge pretty much anything. He only acknowledged that trap section, and he only acknowledged this with the Keeper. I mean, it's kind of like the invisible enemies. I mean, at least tell us how you got past this. Because if you don't tell us how you got past a certain part with no guns in a video game, people are gonna think that you're cheating. I'm just saying. Maybe I'm nitpicking at it, I don't know, but it's just me. Maybe it's just me, I don't know. But I'm just saying, I'm pointing out the facts here.
I continued on, got to this semi-boss thing, which was kinda hard, but more importantly, I ran into this. Looking around, seeing red barrels and ammo littered on the floor.
Now, when I saw this, I questioned, like, what happened to that one section? If you don't know what I'm talking about, here it is. This part right here, where all these enemies just come out of like a garage or whatever, and you gotta kill them. This part is very hard with guns, and you're telling me this guy did it without guns? Kinda hard to believe. So I'm just gonna say that he cheated. I mean, he acted like this part didn't even exist. He went from the boss fight, the little mini boss fight with the Ruvik clone, and he went right to that little elevator gondola thing. He acted like this part of the game just didn't even exist, which is very suspicious. I'm just gonna say it's very suspicious that he just completely skipped right over this part.
So after some work, I got to this old sewer somehow.
Okay, so take a look at this. I started recording. I'm gonna leave that in. I started recording and then that pop-up came up on the right there. I don't know. So I'm just gonna leave that in as like a blooper, but that's funny. But anyway.
All I needed to do was crouch and walk back and forth. Yeah, this part was way easier than I expected. So
he completed that, right? He showed one clip of chapter 12.
Work, I got to this,
and then he got to chapter 14. He is on chapter 11, and he got to chapter 14. He skipped over the rest of chapter 11, pretty much the entire chapter 12, and he didn't even acknowledge that chapter 13 existed. And pretty much after, and he skipped over the beginning of chapter 14, the little train, I'm not going to show any clips, but the train car thing with the Ruvik clone, the machine gun guy on the train car and the sniper, all that he just skipped. So it pretty much ends here. He doesn't really skip much afterwards. He beat the tentacle octopus
so anyways,
boss
I found
fight.
A workaround for that. Right here, you can. Is that a
and then he
grenade
gets
in the
to
Lost and
chapter
glitch him out?
15. He beats chapter 15 genuinely, actually. So let's just go over a quick little glance here at what he has skipped. I'm gonna leave it on the screen. I have it saved on my phone here. I'm going to read it off to you right here. So here's what he skipped. He skipped invisible enemies, the end of chapter 5, 90% of chapter 7, second encounter with the sea monster in chapter 11, and he skipped over the rest of chapter 11 after that little gondola thing or whatever. And again, the rest of chapter 11 isn't really that important. It only has the reunion with Kidman, Sebastian almost turning into a haunted, the gas room, you know that gas room where you can't light a match or shoot a bullet? He skipped that. He skipped all of chapter 12, and chapter 12, again, doesn't really have anything important. It only has the encountering with the giant spider / crab monster, that thing he showed for 2 seconds. hordes of enemies attacking you on a school bus, Joseph getting shot by a sniper, Sebastian having to go get medical supplies to save Joseph's life. The entire chapter 13 he skipped. Chapter 13, again, doesn't really have anything important. It only has the part where you have to use a gun to progress. There's a part in chapter 13 where you have to shoot down an elevator with a bullet and you can progress. Now, he could have used a grenade, but he completely cut that out. He completely cut out an entire chapter of the game. And he just didn't acknowledge that it existed. Why? This dude must have cheated. So back to that part, he either used a grenade and said, I'm not using a grenade on this. That's going to be a waste of valuable resources, which a grenade is pretty valuable. So I've never really tested a grenade on that part, so I don't know if it works. But he could have used it and it could have not worked. It could have worked and he said, oh, I'm not using a grenade. That's stupid. So I'm just going to skip over this entire chapter and just use guns through this whole chapter and no one will ever know. But I know, guys. Trust me. I know. And if you are an Evil Within veteran, then you should know too. But anyway, he skipped the entire apartment scene where you have to fight tons of enemies, including 2 clones of Ruvik. Yes, 2 of them. He skipped the kitchen scene. He skipped the keeper room with the freezer room. You know that freezer room where you have to fight keepers? He skipped that. He skipped Joseph getting killed and shot by Kidman. And he skipped half of chapter 14. And half of chapter 14 consists of the beginning of it, the subway / train scene where all the machine gun guy and the sniper rifle guy are. And he skipped, oh, I forgot that. He skipped the end of chapter 14. Want to guess what the end of chapter 14 is? Pretty much the end of chapter 5, where you have to pull those cords out of the enemy's neck. He skipped that too. And he pretty much just played chapter 15 for the rest of the time. So do I think this guy cheated at this challenge? Yes, I do. 100% I think he cheated on all those parts that I just mentioned. Completely. So, anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Again, maybe I'm just being petty. I don't know. I personally don't think I am. Because if you do a challenge, man up to when you have to cheat. Or not cheat, but use like guns. Say you're doing another video game, like Resident Evil 4, with no guns. I did that. So whenever I had to use a gun, I acknowledged it. I showed you guys me using a gun on a part. So, moral of the story, guys, don't cheat in life. Don't cheat at all. So, thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, comment, like, and subscribe. I love you guys. Take care. See you in the next one. Peace.